The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 8. That's Chapter 24. And also the finale of this season, and maybe even the entire show. I want to give my thoughts about it in this minimally edited form. Also, stick around till the end of this video, because I'm doing my first giveaway. You heard me right, my first giveaway. Anyway, let's just get into it. Welcome back, YouTube, to another video here on the channel. And this episode was frustrating for me. I have a lot of thoughts about it. The episode pretty much starts off with the Mandalorian fighting off the new stormtroopers. I don't know if it's really confirmed if they're wearing Beskar or not, but they do put up a pretty good fight. A much better fight than regular stormtroopers that just wear plastic armor that you can punch through. It's completely useless. But these dudes, they're pretty good. They give Mando a fight, but he has to be saved by Grogu, which is cool. I'm glad I finally get to see Grogu do a little bit more something in this episode. He does quite a few things and not just stand around and look cute. Next, Moff Gideon launches the TIE fighters to go intercept and destroy the Mandalorian mothership. And here we come across a huge plot hole. You see, the Mandalorians, they launched the escape ships to go to the surface, right? And they pass right by the ships that Moff Gideon launches. So why didn't the ships that Moff Gideon launched, why didn't the TIE fighters just destroy all of the Mandalorians? They could have. They had to have seen each other because they flew right past each other. I know their orders were to destroy the Star Destroyer, but they could have killed all the Mandalorians just then and there, and none of this would have happened. So that's kind of bullshit. And that's just one of many plot holes in this episode. We'll get to those later. But this one, it makes it feel like the Mandalorians' entire effort was in vain. And why does it feel that way? Because the Mandalorians from this point on are winning because of the enemy's stupidity. And that's something that you never want to have in a serious show. You don't want your heroes to win and defeat the enemy because of the enemy's stupidity. You want the enemies to be at least somewhat competent. But I guess I know why they did it. They just wanted this shot here of them diving into the clouds and then the other ones coming out. This shot was not worth the enemies feeling completely brain dead for the rest of this episode. But at least we get some pretty cool fight scenes with Din Djarin. And in between the fight scenes with Din Djarin fighting the new stormtroopers, his droid helps out but gets caught by security droids that do absolutely nothing. It's kind of funny. I've always wondered what these security droids even do. Apparently this episode proves that they do actually nothing. Like literally nothing. It's pretty pathetic. Why do these things even exist? Alright, so that's another plot hole in this episode. But we're not done yet. We're not done with the utter lunacy that is this episode. Next we see that Moff Gideon has a cloning lab here on Mandalore. And he's been cloning himself instead of trying to clone Palpatine. I didn't think this was coming. But there's one huge issue that I have with this scene. And I can't believe I have to say this, but if you're going to clone yourself, why would you clone yourself back into an old version of yourself? If you're going to clone yourself, wouldn't you want to be in a younger body? Wouldn't you want your clones to have a younger body? That makes sense to me. Nobody wants to clone themselves and then have the same age and lifespan that they were when they clone themselves. That kind of defeats the purpose of cloning. And another thing is that how is he supposed to get into his clone body? You see, Palpatine, I guess it was implied that he uses his force powers to put himself into other bodies, which includes his clones, I guess. Moff Gideon doesn't have this luxury. He doesn't have force powers, and it's never really explained how is he going to put his consciousness into his clones. Or is his clones just going to be a bunch of him while his real body just dies off and withers away? I don't think that's the type of plan that a guy like this would have. So this is two other plot holes. It's crazy. What were they thinking in this episode? And this is coming from a guy that really likes the sequel trilogy. Like the first two movies in the sequel trilogy, to me those are good movies. Yeah, they have their bad points, but I mean generally they have good things in them. Next we see that the Mandalorians that stayed on this planet have cultivated a garden full of indigenous plants from Mandalore. Which is pretty cool. It's nice that they did this. This scene raises up another plot hole. One that I mentioned in one of my previous videos. How could these Mandalorians stay here and not know that Moff Gideon was running the place? Surely they should have told somebody about it and not led the rest of the group into a trap in the last episode. So the fact that they never acknowledged that Moff Gideon was here on the planet and that they already knew that, it makes their presence like just a giant plot hole. Because A, they would have at least alerted Bo-Katan's party about it. Or B, they would be dead because Moff Gideon would have killed them. So why are they here? Make it make sense. Please. I really like this show. But make it make sense. At least the black guy still looks really cool. I'll give it that. So next, most of the Mandalorians fly into the cave that Moff Gideon is at, and the stormtroopers fly out of the cave, and they do a small skirmish in the air. It's pretty cool, but at this point, I was just tired of all the plot holes that I just saw in order to really enjoy this scene. But I think it was pretty cool. I wish it was dwelled on a little bit longer. I wish we could actually see an aerial battle like this. That would have been cool. It would have had high production values, which maybe it might be too much for a TV show. Come on, this is Disney. They can do it. The rest of this episode's runtime is mainly focused on Grogu, Bo-Katan, and Din Djarin fighting off Moff Gideon and his Praetorian Guard. This is the main good part of this episode that I wouldn't say makes the rest of this episode worth it, but it makes it good because I like the Praetorian Guard. Yeah, I know their fights are kind of bullshit when they appeared in The Last Jedi or whatever. I like their design and I like their weapons. I'm glad we got to see them here and see them fight for an extended period of time. Also in this fight, which is my favorite part, Grogu really does a lot of things in this fight to really just annoy and trick the opponent. For instance, when an enemy tries to grab their weapon, he just uses the Force to move it out the way. That's cool. I like that. We need more of this in fights in this series. And what I've been saying this entire time is that we need more of Grogu doing things, which he finally does. That's good. In the middle of the fight, though, Moff Gideon destroys the Darksaber. That's a very interesting and bold choice for this series. Because I really like the Darksaber. It would have been cool to have Grogu's new weapon later down the line be the Darksaber or something. I can't say I like the idea of them destroying the Darksaber. And the Darksaber's probably gone. Because it was in that huge explosion at the end of this episode. See, the fight in this episode was good. The fight at the end was good. Except for the end of it. The very end of the fight where they didn't even beat Moff Gideon. They didn't chop his head off or nothing. He really didn't lose. And Din Djarin should have kicked his ass all by himself since he already beat him twice. And they couldn't win with a 3v1? Why couldn't they win a 3v1 with the Darksaber no less? Because Moff Gideon's not even a combatant. While Din Djarin, all he does is fight. Weapons are part of his religion. So why is he losing against one guy? They both basically have the same equipment. They're both wearing Mandalorian armor. Din Djarin should have the upper hand, especially in a 3v1. But they didn't even kill him. That's the thing that gets me. They didn't even kill him. What killed Moff Gideon is the ship exploding and him being exposed. That's a very unsatisfying death to me. I'm just gonna say it. Moff Gideon went out like a bitch. And that's not cool. He's a cool character. He's probably my favorite character in this series. And he just went out like he's not nothing. And he can't come back from that either. So he doesn't get another chance. Overall, I think this was just anticlimactic. It was anticlimactic as hell. Subscribe to this channel, by the way, if you feel the same way. I want to know in the comments what you think about this episode. And if you think Moff Gideon's death was bullshit, I want at least 20 comments on this video. Make it happen. But there's another thing in this episode that I think is good. It's a good positive. They basically changed Grogu's name to Din Grogu, which seems like a small change, but I think it's very significant. I remember when people were losing their shit when Grogu's name was first revealed in the last season. I don't think Grogu is a terrible name, but it doesn't really roll off the tongue well. Meanwhile, Din Grogu really rolls off the tongue much better than just Grogu. So I think Din Grogu is going to start to become his new official name that people call him. I like this change. The rest of this episode just wasn't worth it. And I really want to like this episode. I really do. And the rest of this season was good, except for the Lizzo episode. But even that episode had a few good moments in it. This episode is just anticlimactic. For the finale, this episode needs to be really good. Everything has to be on point. But everything is not on point with this one. At least it gives some sense of finality to the series. I hope it ends here. I hope Din Djarin's story ends here. I think it does. He might appear here and there in other projects, but I think this is where his story ends. Grogu's story can still continue. I can't wait to see that. But as far as Din Djarin goes, they're going to have to reel me in hard for Mandalorian Season 4. they're gonna have to dangle some bait, some keys in front of my face. I'm gonna watch it anyway because this is a Star Wars channel. But the rest of this season was really good in my opinion, except for this episode and the Lizzo episode. All right, YouTube, that's pretty much it. Are you ready for the giveaway? So, for this video, I want it to get 10,000 views, and I want you to leave a comment and share. That's the most important part. Share this video. And leave a comment saying, I did it. You will be in a drawing to win Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I'm going to pick the winner on May 3rd and ship it out to you. This is my first giveaway. Let's make it awesome. Other than that, those are my thoughts on the new episode. Even if you don't want to be in the drawing, leave a comment and share. Drink some water. Have a good one.